All right. Let's hope the data is good enough to actually record this correctly. I've been to many places in my life, and I don't know if you can see those half buses full of watermelons, but that was something I'd never seen before. When it comes to the freight in OTR, there are certain places that are black holes, and there are certainly certain things you're going to take out of those areas. I want to talk about just a particular place in Florida. Where am I going with this? This is Freedomville. Like and subscribe, and well, turn up the video speed because you should be watching this at least at 1.5 to 1.75. And I'm always sub-horn, so I appreciate anybody who subscribes. Let's get into this. Florida is one of those places that everybody during the winter wants to be at. And there's hot loads going into Florida, but there's a nightmare of getting out of there. I've picked up loads of produce occasionally, and generally any wise company tries to avoid Florida. And the reason for it is high price going in, cheap freight going out. Now, the one exception might be is when you're taking a load of something to the far north during winter. When I say far north, I'm just saying like, North Dakota, Chicago, something like that. But even then, there's a lot of guys that just run that region. There's some guys that they don't do OTR like I do, where they have their own truck and they will run a certain region. So they only have to certify in certain states. They got something they know. But I remember it was probably a load of like frozen food, frozen potatoes, something to that degree. Simplot, Lamb Weston. I got this load going down there. And when I was unloading at this place, I remember looking across through the fence to this neighboring cow field, because down there in Florida, it isn't just like, it's not all super industrial in some places. Yeah, sure, you got cities and whatnot. But I was watching this, and these cows, they were just munching on the watermelons, I guess ones that weren't good enough to sell or something. I was just thinking to myself just what a cosmic waste that was. Like, you could probably turn that into watermelon wine. There's an old song about that, by the way. But, yeah, man, I get this load, and they're like, well, you need to go down to this place. I'm like, where? And I'm like, and if you don't know where Immokalee is, and I'm probably butchering the pronunciation of that, obviously a native name, it's in the middle of the goddamn swamp. It's in the middle of the bayous. And so I go south. And eventually I get to the freeway. I think it's the 75 or something called Gator Alley. It's one of the 70-something ones. And the kind of cool thing was about Gator Alley, there was a rest area. And they got a fence, but you're literally right on the swamp there. And if you look down, you can see all these disc fish. And occasionally you could see, something like a bigger something down there. When I was just kind of chilling there, taking a quick break, a fan boat kind of just cruised by, some guy just going and fishing. But, I picked back up, hopped back in the truck, and started making my way back towards Immokalee. And along the way, I looked over and I saw a gator in the wood, in the swamp. I'm like, oh, that's cool, seeing a gator. And there was a thing I learned ages ago that they said when it comes, if you're ever down in Florida, like especially places out in the farmlands where they've got like ditches. I mean, the joke I've heard about Florida, they're like, are there gators everywhere? No, if you're in Florida, there's gators. Kind of like similar to Louisiana. Not all of Louisiana, but probably most of it. You get up in the mornings, take a stick or a pop can and drop it. Drop it on the ground. And if there's a gator underneath your dam, because they're instinctual creatures, they'll snap at it. And some people are like, well, why do they sleep underneath the truck? Well, it is a lizard, or, basically an ancient dinosaur. So in that case, it's probably going underneath the engine, if, medium-sized little gator, just to warm up. Because it's like, hey, that's like, lizards like heat rock. So that's the best I could figure out. But yeah, I thought it was cool, saw a gator. And eventually, after driving through what is a highway in the middle of the swamp, I get to Immokalee. And I'm just kind of chilling there. I get to the place I'm supposed to load it at, and they're like, "Oh, we won't be ready for a while. We got to bring in the melons." I'm like, "Okay, whatever." And I'm watching, and this giant, like 1 ton dually pickup truck is towing one of those. Like I guess the motor didn't run or something, but yeah, they just these cut off buses filled to the brim with watermelons. And I'm just looking at it going, wow, this is really something. And the town had some character to it. It was clearly, it was a farming town. But I mean, when people talk about, the mixing of America, oh yeah, you could definitely see it there. You could see like First Nations, a little bit of Afro, obviously Latino, white, Asian, all of it. And to some different degree, you could see a blend of everything and everybody to some degree. You could see it. And it was like, wow. People talk about the melting pot, and it's like, well, there it is. People in the middle of nowhere in a swamp. But sooner or later, I get loaded. And, it's nighttime by the time we finish. I'm like, is there a scale around here? Because I don't want to have to drive all the way back up north. And they're like, I don't remember if there was or not. I think there was one of those, like, local town scales, like they use for farming, write down the numbers. And of course, if I remember right, I did use one, got my numbers. And then I went and tested it, at a Pilot or a Love's or whatever on the way back. Because your objective is, by the way, no BS. When you get down to Georgia and Florida, you got to have those numbers right. But the thing is you don't want to be wrong about that, because once you're far enough away, you gotta crawl back. And I remember, if I remember right, on that load, I was heading north, and I ended up pulling over somewhere, just found a place to sleep next to the highway before I got back onto the toll road. That load ended up taking me north, if I remember right, into Pennsylvania. And I don't get so many loads that take me up that freeway going north like that so often. Most of the stuff I've done would be, say, a load of like apples, fruit from the Northwest, or frozen fries, potatoes, lamb Weston, meat, Great American Snack Corporation. God knows how much of that I'm, like onion rings, Dairy Queen. And then you go out, there's this thing called the Big Triangle, where you go out there and you go so far, and you're going as much as you can every day. You're going as much as you can, because if you end up using recap, whatever you use the first day, past your 8th day, you get back. And it's a 70-hour work week in 8 days, so you can burn it out in 6 days. And that's what I prefer to do. I'd rather blast hard this way, blast hard that way, and burn it out. Maybe take a 34 out on the road. But sometimes, just the way the things work out, you do the Big Triangle and you get this far this way, and then you unload, say, I don't know, Chicago, Atlanta, somewhere, and then you got kind of a waste day where you didn't move as much, and then you get unloaded, and then you find someplace to get reloaded, and then you blast off again to some other part of the country. Let's say Dallas, it's San Antonio, maybe Houston. Done that a number of times. And if things go right, you'll get a load out of one of those Texas cities, and then you'll head all the way to California. And from California, maybe it's a multi-drop load. And you unload one in Southern Cal, one in Northern Cal, and then the last load on that particular run was Spokane, if I remember right. That was a good run. And I was recapping along the way. Now, I've always thought that recap is pretty stupid, to be honest. I've always thought if you get a 10-hour break, you should have a fresh day to work with. I think a lot of guys burn out there. Honestly, it's the shitty diet. Energy drink, coffee should be used, as necessary. Like, I'd recommend, when it comes to coffee, I know a lot of people like it in the morning, but I would recommend like 5-6 hours into your 11-hour day. That's when you drink your coffee. That way, when the coffee wants to crash on you, yeah, it's about bedtime anyways. But yeah, I mean, I blasted off, been all over the place, and there's so many damn cool little weird places across America, and Immokalee, Florida is definitely one of them. It's like, I have only once seen a place like that, and it was only there. I've never seen any sort of harvesters that were using cut-off school buses being pulled by 1-ton pickups. Like, I've seen some I've seen some stuff out in the farmlands before, but not that. It was pretty cool, you know. Like I've said before, America is full of just so much diversity, so much things to see, things going on. That that's part of the reason I recommend trucking to a lot of people. You get to see the whole country. You got a free apartment on wheels, and effectively you can be retired. As a single individual, you could be retired like 7 to 10 years if you just save your money, work right, job hop to a few good companies, and then when you're done, then you got to decide what to do with the rest of your life. But I get it. It's not for everybody. And the sad part is, as the robots eventually take over, there won't be that industry. So I don't know. While you can still get paid to do it, I recommend trucking. And then who knows? Do it as a van lifer. Maybe get like a little Prius or something, ninja your way across the country, because America is an awesome place. Just like I imagine Canada's pretty cool. I actually wouldn't mind trucking Canada. I don't care for their politics, but I'd like to see their country. And Mexico's kind of cool, but it's got issues. So this whole North American thing, I imagine just like if you're in Europe, it's fucking probably awesome over in Europe to drive around. I wonder what Russian truckers are like. I wonder what they're like. Hey, look over there. There's a big bear or a moose. It's got to be awesome driving across like that huge ass country. But anyhow, it's Freedom Phil. Y'all have a good night. Like and subscribe if you feel like it. And this is going to upload. Now I'm going to check if I had enough data coming through right now this time of the day for it not to be shit. And that's why I want a potato phone to do my recordings. Because potato phone would take just a fraction of the time and it'd be clear. Anyways, peace.